I used to believe poverty had a particular sound: buzzing fluorescent lights in a cramped apartment, the rattle of overdue bills shoved under the door, the way my mother sighed as if every inhale cost money she didn't have. For 26 years, that was the soundtrack of my life. Boulder, Colorado was beautiful if you were visiting, but when you were raised on the edge of eviction notices, beauty felt like something happening to other people. My name, at least the one I thought belonged to me, was Avery Lane. I grew up believing I was the daughter of Nora Lane, a waitress who burned through jobs faster than the cigarettes she kept hidden in the laundry basket, and Carl, my stepfather, a man who treated steady employment the same way he treated sobriety, something he might consider next year. My younger half-brother, Dylan, never seemed to understand money at all. He spent it like air: new gaming consoles, sneakers, gadgets he didn't need, while I worked double shifts and filled the fridge with generic brand groceries. Every paycheck I earned went straight into the household. Every raise became a new excuse for someone to say, "Avery, honey, can you help us this month? Just until things get better." But better never came. Not once. Still, I told myself this was my duty. My family needed me. I had been taught that since childhood. If they fell apart, it was because I hadn't tried hard enough. That kind of guilt settles deep in your bones. It shapes the way you see the world. It convinces you you're the only pillar holding up a collapsing house. Looking back now, I realize how convenient that narrative was. For them. One Monday morning, at Denver Analytics, where I worked as a data analyst, my supervisor knocked on my desk and said, "Avery, HR needs your original birth certificate for the promotion paperwork. They said the scan you uploaded wasn't the right version." It should have been a simple errand. Go home, find the certificate, upload it. But nothing about my life was simple, and hindsight would later show me that this request was the first crack in the mask my family had spent decades constructing. That evening, after another tense dinner with my family, Carl complaining about his unfair delivery schedule, Mom complaining about tips, Dylan asking for gas money, I slipped into the hallway closet and pulled out the plastic bin labeled Personal Docs. I expected to find the same birth certificate I had seen years before. Instead, when I unfolded the paper, my throat tightened so fast I almost couldn't breathe. The name printed at the top wasn't Avery Lane. It was Amelia Hartwell. For a moment, I genuinely thought it was a mistake. Someone else's paper mixed in while we moved apartments, but the date of birth was mine. The hospital was in Denver, not Boulder, and the mother's name, Nora, was spelled in her handwriting, Hartwell. The name hit me with a cold jolt. Not just familiar, famous. Hartwell Industries was everywhere in Colorado: trucks, warehouses, scholarships, fundraisers. The kind of last name you only heard in business journals or political fundraisers, not in a house with mismatched chairs and a leaky ceiling. Why would my name ever have been Hartwell? I walked into the living room, birth certificate in hand. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "can you explain this?" Nora froze mid-sip of her tea. "Explain what, sweetheart?" "This." I held up the paper. "Why does my birth certificate say Amelia Hartwell?" Her face drained of color so quickly, I thought she might faint. Carl shifted on the couch but didn't say a word. Dylan paused his game and looked annoyed, as if my question had interrupted his evening. Mom stood up too fast, tea sloshing onto the floor. "Avery, that's old paperwork. It's nothing. They made a mistake when you were born. I've seen that scan before. It didn't look like this. And this isn't a typo. This is an entirely different name." She snatched the document from my hand with trembling fingers. "It doesn't matter. You're Avery. That's your name. That's who you are." "But why does it say Hartwell?" My voice cracked. "Mom, what are you not telling me?" She stared at me with a fear I had never seen before. Not anger, not irritation, real fear. The kind that tells you the truth is a beast with teeth. "Drop it," she whispered. "This isn't something you need to dig into. It was a long time ago. It's over." "But HR needs the original," I insisted. "I need to know why." "You're not taking that anywhere." She shoved the paper into a drawer and turned the lock with shaking hands. "End of discussion." Carl finally spoke, arms crossed over his chest. "Your mother said drop it. You heard her." Dylan rolled his eyes. "God, Avery, can you not create drama for once?" Drama. That word stabbed deeper than it should have, because standing in that dim living room, watching my mother guard that drawer like it held a live bomb, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't about a typo. This wasn't even about a name. This was about a truth so big, so dangerous to them, that they were willing to lie, deflect, and lock away any trace of it. And for the first time in my life, I felt the ground under my feet shift. Not because I had found a birth certificate, but because I had discovered that the people I trusted most were afraid of it. Afraid of me. The night after my mother locked away my birth certificate, sleep refused to come. Every time I shut my eyes, the name printed on that paper, Amelia Hartwell, flashed behind my eyelids like a warning. By dawn, I knew I wouldn't survive another day without answers. So I did what I'd been trained to do as a data analyst. I followed the trail. I started with something simple, public birth records for Colorado. I typed my supposed birthday into the state database and hit search. The page populated instantly, and my pulse slammed against my ribs. There was no Avery Lane born that day, but there was an Amelia Rose Hartwell. Same date, same hospital, same mother's first name. I stared at the screen so long my eyes burned. The air felt thick, as if the room itself knew something I didn't. "No way," I whispered. "No way this is real." But it was. I expanded the file. The registered address belonged to a Denver neighborhood I'd only seen in magazines, and where the father's name should have been, the line was left blank. But someone had handwritten an initial in the margin. A single letter, D. I didn't know what that meant yet, but my gut twisted. I dug deeper. I pulled up archived newspapers, public registries, financial disclosures, anything tied to the name Hartwell. It didn't take long to find Daniel Hartwell, the heir to Hartwell Industries, dead at 22 in a single-car collision on I-25. There were hundreds of articles, pictures of him at charity events, at company functions, shaking hands with politicians. Then I found one photo that stole the air right out of my lungs. Daniel stood beside a group of employees during a holiday gala. And there, on the edge of the frame, almost out of focus but unmistakable, was my mother. Younger, smiling shyly, wearing a name tag that read Nora. Finance Dept. My finger hovered over the trackpad. My mouth felt dry. "Mom," I said into the empty room. "What did you do?" I clicked the accompanying caption, Hartwell Industries Finance Team, including new hire Nora Lane. Everything inside me tilted. I pushed back from my desk and paced the room, hands in my hair, heart racing. If my mother worked for Hartwell Industries at the same time Daniel was alive, and if my original name was Hartwell, then what had she been hiding all these years? I returned to the search bar with trembling hands. Daniel Hartwell, Nora. A handful of articles popped up, none explicit, but one mentioned that after Daniel's death, a staff member close to him resigned abruptly. The staff member's name wasn't listed, but the timeline matched the year my mother claimed we had to move suddenly. I swallowed hard. Another piece of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to finish. The deeper I went, the worse it got. I found references to a sealed civil agreement from 26 years earlier between H. Hartwell and N. Lane, though the details were redacted. But sealed didn't mean invisible. Someone had tagged the case with a financial code, one used for long-term support arrangements. My skin prickled. I logged into a private financial database I had access to through work and searched for transfers linked to my mother's old accounts. At first, nothing. Then I saw it. A series of deposits, each exactly $5,000, arriving on the first of every month for 18 straight years. The sender was listed only as HH, but the routing number belonged to a private corporate trust, a trust owned by Harold Hartwell, the chairman, the patriarch, Daniel's father, the grandfather I never knew existed. The room spun, and I had to grab the edge of my desk to stay upright. The deposit stopped the month I turned 18. And 3 months later, our first emergency debt appeared. Then a second. Then the electricity got shut off. Then Carl lost his job. Then Dylan needed help. Every financial disaster of my adult life had perfectly aligned with the moment my mother's secret income vanished. It wasn't just poverty, it was maintenance. I felt sick. I scrolled through the 18 years of payments again, each one a silent confession. My mother hadn't raised me alone. She'd been paid handsomely to do it. Not as charity, not as welfare, as obligation. I clicked the small note attached to one of the earliest payments. It was a scanned image of the original agreement header. Most of the text was blacked out, but a single line remained visible. Upon the child's 18th birthday, She must be presented to her grandfather for formal acknowledgement. Presented. Like property. I shut my laptop so fast it echoed. My mother had never taken me to anyone. She hadn't even told me I had another name. Instead, she'd moved us from Denver, changed my identity, and reinvented our entire life. She'd run. From what? From whom? And why? My phone buzzed. I jumped. It was a text from Nora. "Everything okay? You've been quiet today." I stared at the message, my breath shaking. I typed back, "We need to talk." Her reply came instantly. "No, stop digging, Avery. Let it go. Let it go." Like I could unknow the fact that my entire life, my struggles, my guilt, my endless sacrifice, had been built on a lie thick enough to choke me. I sat there in the dim glow of my apartment, clutching the edges of my life as they unraveled in my hands. For the first time, I understood something painful and undeniable. I hadn't been born into poverty. I had been delivered into it, by choice. Someone else's choice. And the truth I'd uncovered was only the beginning of a story that was already turning into a storm. 3 days after I uncovered the payments my mother had hidden, my phone rang with an unknown Denver number. Normally, I ignored calls like that. Bill collectors, telemarketers, people wanting something from me. But something in my chest tightened, and I answered. "Is this Ms. Avery Lane?" a man asked, his voice low, practiced, almost unsettlingly calm. "Yes," I said cautiously. "My name is Miles Harrington. I represent the late Mr. Harold Hartwell. I believe we need to speak. In person." My breath faltered. "Why?" A pause, then, "Because you are not who you think you are." The line went dead before I could respond. I sat frozen, staring at the phone as if it might explode. My heart thudded out of rhythm. Miles Harrington, Harold Hartwell, a lawyer, a meeting. The truth I'd clawed toward was finally knocking at my door, and I wasn't ready. Yet I couldn't stop myself from going. Miles's office in downtown Denver overlooked the skyline with floor-to-ceiling windows and a silence so thick it felt rehearsed. When the receptionist ushered me inside, the man himself rose from behind a massive walnut desk. Gray hair, sharp suit, eyes that had seen more than he'd ever say aloud. "Avery," he greeted, offering a hand. "Or perhaps I should say, Amelia." My knees nearly buckled. "Sit," he said gently. "You'll want to be seated." I lowered myself into the leather chair. Every muscle in my body was pulled tight, ready to snap. Miles opened a locked drawer and placed a thick folder in front of me. "Your grandfather," he began, "was relentless in trying to find you. He hired investigators, filed motions, followed leads for years, all obstructed by your mother's refusal to comply with their agreement." He slid the first document toward me. It was a contract. Old, yellowed, formal. The names hit me like a blow. Nora Lane Harold J. Hartwell, child, Amelia Rose Hartwell. My mother's signature looped across the page in handwriting I'd known my whole life. "This," Miles said quietly, "was the arrangement made after Daniel's death. Mr. Hartwell took responsibility for his granddaughter. $5,000 a month. Medical care, education, safety." I swallowed hard, but my throat felt packed with sand. "In return," he continued, "your mother was to present you to him when you reached adulthood. But she disappeared, changed your name, moved you repeatedly. Every investigator he hired hit the same wall. Nora." He pushed forward another stack, bank statements documenting 18 years of transfers. "Mr. Hartwell never stopped paying," Miles said. "He believed you deserved stability. When Nora cut ties after your 18th birthday, he suspected she'd broken the agreement." I pressed a hand to my mouth. Why didn't he come find me himself?" "He tried," Miles said, "but Nora blocked contact. Once you turned 18, she no longer legally had to comply. She vanished before he could reach you." Every breath I took shook. Miles studied me with something like pity, not condescending, but heavy, mournful. "Your grandfather passed away 6 weeks ago. Before his death, he updated his will. He left his entire estate to you on one condition." "What condition?" I whispered. "That your identity as Amelia Hartwell is verified." My pulse hammered. "You're saying everything he owned, everything," he confirmed. "But this is not simply about inheritance, Avery. Your grandfather wanted you to know your lineage. He wanted you to know you were loved, wanted, sought after. You were never forgotten." Tears stung my eyes, hot and humiliating. I looked down at the contract, the signatures, the black and white proof of 18 years of lies. The weight of it all pressed against my ribs. For so long, I had carried my family on my back, thinking it was the moral thing to do, thinking I owed them. But the truth was a blade. They had known I had another life, one they stole to keep me useful. I was never just the responsible daughter. I was the replacement for a lost income stream. I pressed my palms together to keep them from shaking. "Why call me now? Why not years ago?" Miles exhaled. "Because your grandfather's investigators finally traced you to Denver Analytics several months before his passing. We were preparing to contact you. He passed away before he could meet you." My vision blurred. I didn't know if it was grief for the man I never met or fury for the woman who made sure I never would. "So what happens now?" I asked hoarsely. "That is up to you," Miles said. "You can accept the inheritance or you can decline it. But before either choice is made, Mr. Hartwell's estate must formally acknowledge you." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "There will have to be a reading of the will, witnesses, legal verification, and your mother will need to be present." My stomach twisted. "She'll never admit what she did." "Perhaps," he said, "but the truth does not rely on her consent, only on evidence." I stared down at the folder, at the life I should have had, the one that had been smothered before I could breathe it. My childhood, my choices, my exhaustion, all reshaped themselves in a new, horrifying context. I had not been a daughter supported by her family. I had been a resource, a paycheck, a tether. "Hold the will reading," I said, my voice steeled by something new, something sharp. "Invite them, all of them. I want to hear the truth in the same room where they've demanded so many lies from me." Miles nodded slowly. "As you wish, Ms. Hartwell." Ms. Hartwell. The name felt foreign on my skin, but for the first time, nay, it also felt like mine. Denver Convention Hall had never looked so sterile, so cold. Rows of polished chairs, a long mahogany table, a microphone that hummed faintly under the fluorescent lights. Everything felt too official, too large, too public for the private disaster that was about to unfold. I invited my mother, Carl, and Dylan without explanation. I told them it was a financial meeting. Technically, that wasn't a lie. But I could feel the tension radiating from all three of them as they walked into the hall. Carl muttered something about finally sorting out the tax issue, while Dylan complained about missing work at the auto shop. My mother stayed uncharacteristically silent, her eyes scanning the room as if searching for an escape route. Miles stood at the front, straightening paperwork with the calm of a man who had seen families crumble before lunchtime. "Thank you all for attending," he began. "We are here to proceed with the reading of the last will and testament of Harold Joseph Hartwell." Carl snorted. "What does a billionaire's will have to do with us?" Nora shot him a warning look, but it was too late. Miles glanced at her, subtle, cold, knowing. She shrank back in her chair. He continued, "Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Avery Lane, known legally at birth as," my heart pounded, "Amelia Rose Hartwell." The room fell silent. Carl blinked as if someone had spoken another language. Dylan frowned at me, confused. "But my mother—" She shot up from her chair so fast it scraped across the marble floor. "No," she burst out. "No, no, no! She is not Amelia. She is Avery, my daughter. This is a mistake. I don't know what this man told you, but—" "Nora," Miles interrupted. "Please sit." But she didn't. She reached for my hand, desperate, fingers trembling as they clamped around my wrist. "We're leaving," she hissed. "Right now." I gently pulled my hand away. "I'm not going anywhere." Her face contorted. Fear, anger, panic, all battling for control. "You don't know what they're doing. They'll take you away, just like they took Daniel." Her voice cracked on the name. Miles spoke evenly. "Ms. Lane, no one here intends to take anyone. We are merely presenting the contents of the decedent's will." He lifted the first page. "I, Harold Joseph Hartwell, leave the entirety of my estate, including shares of Hartwell Industries, all trusts, and all properties, to my granddaughter and sole heir, Amelia Rose Hartwell." The air seemed to thicken. I could feel every heartbeat in the room. Carl surged to his feet. "Granddaughter? What kind of scam is this?" Dylan shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. He looked at my mother, waiting for her to tell him what to believe. Miles opened a folder and slid several documents onto the table. This is the agreement signed between Ms. Lane and Mr. Hartwell 26 years ago. These are the payment records confirming monthly transfers. And this, he lifted the birth certificate, my real one, is the original identification of the child involved. Nora's knees buckled, and she dropped into her chair as if someone had cut the strings holding her upright. "I was trying to protect her," she whispered, voice cracking. "You don't understand. After Daniel died, Harold threatened to take her. He wanted to raise her himself, to mold her into a Hartwell. I wasn't going to let him steal my baby like he stole my son." My lungs froze. "Son?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. Her tears spilled over. "Daniel was the only man I ever loved. And when I found out I was pregnant, they didn't want me. They didn't want you. They wanted another Hartwell heir. A symbol, not a child." She covered her face with both hands. "I ran because I thought it was the only way to keep you. I ran because if Harold ever found you, I'd lose everything." "You didn't protect me," I said quietly. "You hid me. From my own life." Her head snapped up. "I raised you. I fed you. I kept us together." "You used me." My voice trembled, not with anger but with clarity. "When the money stopped, you didn't lose a daughter, you lost a paycheck." "No, Avery, that's not true," Carl cut in, voice sharp. "So all that time we were broke, you had a rich baby daddy, and you didn't say anything?" It was the first time I'd seen fear and guilt flash across her face at once. She didn't answer him. Miles cleared his throat. "Ms. Hartwell has decisions to make moving forward. But for today, the purpose is acknowledgement and legal clarity." I rose from my chair, hands steady even as my heart raced. "I'm not here to punish anyone." I looked at Nora, then at the two men who had treated me like a financial safety net my whole life. "But I am done being responsible for choices that were never mine to begin with." I slid a document onto the table, one Miles and I had prepared. "You will acknowledge what happened. You will confirm that you concealed my identity, and you will agree never to ask me for money again." Carl scoffed. "You think you can cut us off just like that?" "Yes," I said. "I can. And I am." I pointed to the final clause. "You will also contribute to the memorial fund created in Daniel Hartwell's name, not because you owe me, but because you owe him." Nora's shoulders shook as she cried silently. "Avery, please." I didn't look away. I can forgive fear, I can forgive mistakes, but I cannot forgive manipulation disguised as love. Slowly, painfully, she picked up the pen. The hall remained silent, except for the scratch of signatures. With every stroke of ink, I felt a chain unhook from my ribs. When it was done, I stood taller than I ever had in my life. My name was Amelia Hartwell. And at last, the past had spoken its truth. When I stepped out of Denver Convention Hall, the late afternoon sun hit me with a warmth that felt almost unreal. Colorado light always had a way of spilling across the mountains like gold dust. But that day, it felt different. Cleaner, sharper, like the air itself was finally letting me breathe for the first time in my life. Behind me, the doors of the hall clicked shut, sealing away years of secrets, lies, and the versions of myself other people had tried to shape. Ahead of me stretched a wide open parking lot and the distant hum of the city, a world that suddenly felt vast instead of suffocating. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to cry or laugh. Maybe both. The truth was official now. On paper, and in blood. My name was Amelia Rose Hartwell, heiress to a fortune I never asked for, and a family legacy I had been denied. But as I stood there beneath the orange sky, I realized something surprising. I didn't feel like Amelia. I felt like Avery, Avery Lane, the girl who worked 2 jobs to keep her family afloat, who learned how to navigate life without a safety net, who carried responsibilities that never belonged to her. Avery, who survived not because of money, but because of grit, because of heart, because she refused to break. Amelia was the life I was born into. Avery was the life I built with my own hands, and I needed both. I walked slowly toward my car, letting each step settle the storm that had been raging inside me for days. For the first time, I wasn't walking away from something, but toward something new, something mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Miles. "Whenever you're ready, I'll finalize the paperwork." "Take your time, Ms. Hartwell." I smiled faintly. Ms. Hartwell. A name that once felt impossibly distant now felt like a coat I could choose to wear or not, depending on the version of myself I wanted to step into that day. I typed back, "Thank you, Miles. I'll be in tomorrow." And, "Call me Avery," because money wasn't what defined me. Freedom did. I leaned against my car door and inhaled deeply, feeling my lungs stretch in a way they hadn't in years. For so long I had been trapped, by guilt, by responsibility, by the belief that love meant carrying other people's burdens until I couldn't stand anymore. But the moment Nora signed that agreement, the weight on my shoulders cracked open and slid to the ground. I wasn't obligated to save anyone anymore. I wasn't responsible for anyone's chaos. I wasn't a replacement income stream. I was simply me. The sun dipped lower, painting the Denver skyline in rose and copper. I replayed the scene inside the hall, the shock, the silence, the signatures that changed everything. It should have felt like vengeance. It didn't. It felt like closure. I would have to rebuild myself piece by piece. Understand what was real, what I wanted, who I wanted to be. But for the first time in my life, the road ahead didn't terrify me. It invited me. As I opened the car door, I whispered to myself, "This is where it starts." Not the life Nora tried to give me, not the life the Hartwells had planned for me, but the life I chose. And that realization was the kind of wealth no inheritance could match. I drove home with the windows cracked open, letting the wind rush in and tangle my hair, letting the world feel big again. Not overwhelming, possible, wide, open, mine. When I finally reached my small apartment, I paused at the door, looked at the worn welcome mat, the chipped frame, and smiled. Everything would change soon. Legally, financially, publicly. But tonight, I just wanted to be Avery, the girl who survived long enough to save herself. And maybe that was the real ending to this story. Not the revelation, not the fortune, not the courtroom-style showdown, but the quiet moment afterward when I realized I didn't need anyone's permission to step into the life waiting for me. I turned off the car, picked up my bag, and walked confidently into the night. A new beginning doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply exhales. If you listen to this story from beginning to end, tell me, did it move you? Did you enjoy following my journey? Comment and let me know what kinds of stories you want me to tell next. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the stories other women will share. Stories of strength, of survival, of the moments that changed everything.